what up to the I Be Ballin' basketball show with your girl Ashley I Be Ballin'. Today we're gonna review a great hockey movie called The Rhythm. But first, I want to introduce my special guest, Cuzzo Will. What up?
What up? What up?
So tell them where they can find you on social media and tell them about your channel, Road to William.
On social media, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, Road to William, all together. And then Road to William, my channel, you could check it out. I'm doing movie reviews and uh just keeping y'all in the know of what's going on in the news, what to be aware of, but also give out inspiration through my videos too. So go check it out, Road to William.
Okay, fine. Make sure you visit and explore all the videos, one-stop shop interviews, movie reviews. So you do a lot of icons, learning about the
Hmm.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get confused because I saw the movie, The Rhythm, but then I found out there's a documentary called Black Ice. I thought there was just a book called Black Ice, but I couldn't find the documentary to watch it. But the rhythm is about this young hockey player, right? And, you know, he's trying out for this team, but then, he gets into a fight and he's turned into a felon, right? Because the fight went overboard. And we're going to get to like favorite characters, favorite scenes, the lessons. Eventually, he's coaching, the inner city youth and turning them into a hockey team. But if there's what I like to do with movie reviews is if there's one word to describe this movie, what would it be? And also, I want you to talk a little bit about what you learned from the doc too. I didn't get a chance to, but if you want to watch the documentary or the movie, it's on Disney and Hulu. Um, but I got rid of my Disney and Hulu. But, is there one word to describe this movie? What would it be? I think mine would be redemption because he obviously was a very talented hockey player and, and I don't think he should have really went to jail, because in hockey they fight all the time. But I understand. But I do feel like he got redemption in a lot of different ways in the movie, because he's teaching, the young men how to play, hockey and the different rules and making them, you know, get rhythm and not be afraid. Like I like when he was teaching the young goalie to not be afraid and stuff. So even if you don't become like a big star NHL player, you still can pass on your skills to the kids. And there was even a former NHL player turned janitor that was teaching. Oh, let me find his name first. Real name is Arthur Cartwright, and he played Robert Taylor, and they called him Buck. So it was almost like Buck was teaching the youth, but the janitor, who we didn't know at the time was a former NHL player, he was teaching Buck, like, hey, you got the skills to be a pro. And so I felt like everybody got redemption in different ways. And, eventually Buck got a girl too, So that's redemption right there. If you don't go teach the kids, you may not get the girl either. And he also got redemption because he went to the tryouts to make it to the major leagues. And All those opportunities came because of, teaching the kids. So I would say redemption because he definitely redeemed himself. So what would your word be? Or phrase?
My word would be believe because that's what it took for them to like continue and come together. Like they had to believe in somebody. Like the kids had to believe in him enough to trust him for them to even go on this, journey together. So I think that's my word for that, for the film. But redemption's good too, because he had to come back from a lot.
Okay, okay. Believe. You gotta believe in yourself. And he was there was different times where he needed to believe in himself too, because the janitor who his name might be Mr. Little, he needed Buck to believe in himself for the tryout, the hockey tryout, but also he needed the kids to believe in themselves. So yeah, believe is a great word. So do you have like a favorite scene from this movie? Because I think mine would just be seeing uh seeing the hockey games obviously, and the black boys go from they looked it terrible in the beginning to they was playing as a team, and I like how the goalie was really afraid, but then later on in the movie he's like catching I liked when they went to the roller rink because that's where we went back in the day, because it's like with a lot of black, when we were growing up, we didn't
Hmm.
really play hockey. The most we would do is roller skate, or you see some kids, rollerblade on the street, playing in the street, playing hockey, but never really on the ice. I do remember when I was little, they took us for a field trip, and I was scared. I was going to the edge and stuff. Well, I never would go in the middle. I would just stay on the side, skating with my hands on the rail. Because I do feel like a lot of black kids don't get to experience a lot of sports that are like, you know, deemed white sports or whatever. We don't really snowboard or ski. I think when I was in high school, I think I would have liked to play lacrosse, but I went to like a black school. There was Latinos there too, but we didn't really have that. We had basketball, football, baseball. We had volleyball, and I think my senior year is when they started soccer. But I didn't grow up playing soccer either. But I guess those are my favorite scenes. And I did like when the lady Olivia, she was like, she was really for the community. She was white, but she was really for the black community. She was like, this is where the homeless get fed, and, kids go for a safe place. I liked when they showed her skills with um, what do they call that? Ice skating, but it's not hockey. I remember it was a Disney movie called Ice Princess, and she would like do the ice skating. So that was pretty cool. Do you have a favorite scene?
Probably my most favorite scene was the roller rink because I used to grow up in the that was my that was my go-to. I like going to the roller rink. I had my birthday parties there. And even as I got older, I remember in college they had something at the Incrediroll. Um, and I remember just not being on skates years and years still just being able to get in that groove because it's so fun, it's relaxing, and you got music. And I think it's just a fun outing to go to regardless of your age, you know. And it was a safe haven. I did a video on my channel called Skating Through History, and it talked about how it was some like throwback flicks of some people who still skate to this day, but they talked about the history, how they were, banned from going to skating rinks. And not too long ago, they had closed one not far from where I stay, but there was this big roller rink, and now it's a Planet Fitness. And it just goes to show it just like people don't really care about the community as much as they may think. Like that movie, well, yeah, we're talking about it. The Rhythm does a good like uh depiction of what really happens in the politics of it all, the behind the scenes that, oh, you might be like, oh, a roller rink is a great way to have community come together, kids out the streets, adults can, communicate, we can learn from each other, grow, build from there, leave it. But instead, they'd rather make money. What's the best way to make money off of people? And so this was a good film to show that. When it came to the acting, certain parts made me cringe a lot, but it did have a really good, what made me keep watching and kept going was it kept a good storyline, and the actors, you could tell they like were passionate in the film. I think it was like maybe the way certain things were shot might make it look awkward, you know what I mean? But it was just some parts I was cringing. But other than that, everybody did a great job in the film. But that the roller rink was probably my most favorite though.
Yeah, I do remember going to your parties. You know, I wasn't very good at skating, but I went there and sometimes um I might have stayed on the carpet too. I felt like the carpet was the same. But also a lot of field trips. I remember I hurt my ankle because, when you fall, people want to grab onto you, like, don't make me fall. Now my ankle hurts and but good times, good memories, good thoughts on the movie about the acting. Um Definitely like a low budget movie. But you know, that might be it might be similar to, like you said, the communities, people don't really care about it because, like, it did show the politics, like you said. They wanted to tear that down and make, I feel like they was trying to make some type of shopping area, maybe a mall. I can't really remember. But they're like, oh, no one's using that. No one really cares about that. But people do care. Um, so yeah, they definitely tried to show a lot of prejudice, discrimination, racism in the movie. Um, he talked about the acting. Was there an actor that stood out to you, or and was mostly cringe? Favorite character?
I think they were good. I think it was certain scenes. I don't really have a favorite per se. Maybe the janitor because
Oh yeah.
he was like in the cut, but he had all the knowledge. So that's probably why he'd be my favorite one. But also the kids were good too. They were funny. And um he also gave them confidence in the kids. Like when I forgot the kid's name, but he grabbed his first puck or what do they call them things? But he basically blocked the puck from getting in, and so he was like, I forgot he had a saying, but he like made this kid feel like the greatest in the world because he showed the confidence inside himself. And it wasn't until he like the kid had basically lived it out to feel it, he wouldn't have like really taken everything that dude was saying because people can talk a good game about what you should do, what will make you a great player, but until you take that advice and it actually like works, that's when you begin to appreciate it. So that's why I think you gotta believe in yourself too. Like people can tell you all the good things you need to do in the world or what you need to succeed, but your life, it's your life and it's up to you to decide like how you want it to go. So I thought that was dope too.
Yeah, I guess all the kids were probably the best, and the goalie and the janitor. I would agree. I I think so like what was the biggest lessons you got from the movie? Um like you said, it could be confidence, believing in yourself. Um it could be feel like it also could be about, passing gifts on and helping others because that was what the rink was all about. Even
Hmm.
Olivia was like this for the community, and
Yeah.
janitor was passing it on to Buck, and Buck was passing his knowledge on to kids, giving back. But it also could be about history, about, you know, not a lot of the youth, you know, plays these type of sports. So it could be about that as well, and how you endure racism because just like in tennis, with tennis, the Williams sisters, they endured that racism. Even golf, Tiger Woods. You don't see a lot of black people playing golf, And some of it is, discrimination. It's like, where are they going to get the equipment? Are they going to be allowed into these country clubs? And though where you live in the hood, do they even have the right space, my mom was telling me about this Olympian from Chicago, and he would come all the way here to Wisconsin to practice for hours and hours in um in the skating rink, the ice rink. What would your what was some of the lessons you learned from this?
I learned two. One was a quote from the film where he said, "Losing is temporary, but quitting is forever." And then a quote from the grandma was like, "Show them who you are." That was before he went to jail. That was before the fight and everything. But that was when he was hesitant to, um, play for the guy. And no, the grandma didn't predict that that would happen. He did make the right step going forward, and he was trying to do the right thing when he was trying to play for the guy, but um, like the janitor said, he was like, you gotta check your attitude first, like, um, because it'll get in your head, it's a mind game too. And my other favorite shots of the film was when they were in the dark and they were like flashing the light at the pucks. That was I was like, oh, that's a dope technique. Um, I like when boxing films do that too. They show the techniques they do when they practice. I like those type of shots in movies, the behind the grit work. Um, but yeah, those were my two things that I took from the film. And also the documentary um was good. It dived a lot more into the history of hockey and how, they kept saying in this film, like, oh, black people don't play hockey, or I didn't know black people play hockey. And it like dives deeper into where it started from. Like they talk about it in the film and they created it like it was a legacy being passed on and on, which it is. But I think one of the dopest things too is you have to go into history to know that it was possible because sometimes you look now, you be like, oh, I didn't know. We're still hearing people say the first black da 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 da, like so it's like you do, but people like shame people sometimes for going back into history, like, oh, everyone has faults and we shouldn't be looking back to move ahead. But if you don't know how to move forward or you need help with moving forward, you do have to look back, dive deep because it's going to be gems. Somebody thought of the same thing you thought of 30 years ago, 50 years ago, and you just have a um, better advantage now because of what they had to put in the work back then. So I think if people like the history part of uh, or want to know more about the history of hockey, I think that's a great film to watch, the Rhythm documentary.
Right, right. Because you can learn a lot about history, you know. They try to teach us in school, about social studies and history.
And that should be revamped too, because my whole thing is with why I be dropping so much history is like I didn't learn this growing up. I didn't learn like all this Black history growing up in schools. A little bit of history was when I would lived in Gary, Indiana. Me and my mom lived with my grandfather for a little bit. And it wasn't until then that I saw like, oh, people can teach more than the standard. And so I think it's important to learn about your history. Uh, because the system isn't going to do it. They purposely not going to teach people how to liberate themselves. They're going to teach you what they want you to know to get you to the next level that they want you to go to.
Yeah, because, they control what's in the books. They don't want you to know your history or the truth. Sometimes they put their own history in there or they'll mess up our history and just spread lies. A lot of black history, they never really wrote it down, so it was more like storytelling. They didn't want us to write it down. They don't want people to know real.
Mhm.
And that's for like a lot of different races too. So we're coming to the end. Thanks for sharing about the documentary Black Ice. Thanks for coming with rhythm, because rhythm, moving as one. Yeah, because I think it does take a rhythm in different sports, and you do have to be like on one string. So, oh, and you also said that you learned that there was like female hockey players too, and they had their own league. I didn't know that. Um,
Yeah, definitely
and
a good. And they're like world champions too. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
yeah,
But I'm also not into hockey, so maybe if I was more into hockey, I probably would have known that. But if you don't know nothing about hockey, you wouldn't have known that.
yeah.
But who's your favorite hockey player? People in the comments.
Um, the main one I know is his dad was a basketball player in the NBA, Popeye Jones, I think. So that's the only reason why I know he has a son in the NHL. But yeah, oh, and I went to my first hockey game. It was like the Black Hawk and something else. Uh, so that was like my first pro hockey game because they had it in the forum. Because Milwaukee only has like the Admirals, which is not really pro hockey. It's just like. But thanks for joining me. Make sure you
Oh,
guys
quick.
like. Oh,
Also, shout out. We'll never see this, but 'cause I don't think he'd be on YouTube like that. But shout out to my dad for taking me one of my first times on the ice skating rink when I was a kid, but I was terrified to go on there because in second grade, second or third grade, my school had took us, and me and this other girl, we was down for the count. We was two on the side because they was we was playing some game called like uh I forgot the name of it, but it's like it's the limbo. You hold that, you go
Oh,
under the loop,
wow.
but it was on ice, and like I hit my mouth on the fucking thing because I ain't duck enough. And somebody else fell, and so we was just both on the sidelines like this is crazy. Then my dad took me, and I didn't want to go on ice, and he was like, "Why?" I'm like, I can't get back on that ice no more." But and I think that was the last time I've been ice skating. No, no, I went ice skating. They did it. I don't know if they still do it, but downtown Milwaukee, where the Starbucks is, they usually have like an ice skating rink. That was the last time I went ice skating.
Okay.
And it's too cramped in there. Don't go if you don't like crowds. But uh,
Yeah, good
yeah,
good skating experiences. It's hard to limbo, even, without ice. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and explore. Go to YouTube, The Road to William, check it out. Thanks for joining me. And we got to learn more about sports history and Black history and the music history because they think, oh, you invented this, but really the Blacks did. So, but yeah, thanks for joining me and skate on. Keep balling or pucking, shooting. Peace.